How will Digital India campaign drive this market in the near future?
So the Digital India campaign is definitely, a very, very welcome development, and I'm actually very pleasantly surprised at the pace at which the government is adopting digital technologies in various facets of its administration. So, I mean, if I take a specific example, vaccination certificates for India create a massive amount of data, right? So tracking people's vaccination records and so on. Now, all of that is getting digitalized. And that is just one example of how data center demand, because that requires a lot of data center capacity. And it's also a database that will keep growing and evolving because people will then subsequently need to get booster shots or just you need to keep track when the effectiveness of the vaccine will wane, and they need to do even for travel and so on and so forth. So I mean, that's just one example. I mean, it's quite commendable that the pace at which some of these initiatives are taking place. So yeah, I think definitely on the back of that, the government at the state level, different states are announcing data center policies wherein they're talking about giving different incentives. In some cases, they're talking about stamp duty reductions or waivers. Some cases, they're talking about waiving some of the electricity duties and so on. So I think there's a whole variety of activities, and this is important for this industry given that it's just at a very young and nascent stage, and it requires a tremendous amount of investment, but at the same time, it's critical for India's future.
So, what exactly is the plans we talking about investing 12 billion rupees in data centers?
So we have announced the acquisition of a site in Mumbai where we could, the load capacity of that site is about 90 megawatts in Navi Mumbai. So that will be our first foray. We are also actively looking at locations in Chennai. We are also seeing whether in our existing parks or within the land banks that we already own in markets like Bangalore, Hyderabad, etc., can we build new DCs. So we have a variety of opportunities in the data center that are under very, very active evaluation.
Last year, the Capital Land 2030 Sustainability Master Plan was released. How have you begun making changes in existing assets to make it more sustainable?
So what we like, I think a good example of as a response to your questions in Bangalore, where actually the park is now being developed in phases since I think the first building became operational in 1998. About 3 or 4 years ago, we took very active steps to see how we can bring renewable energy into the park. And today, all the common areas of our park, about 75% of these common areas in Bangalore are powered by solar energy. So that's one very, very concrete example. Because of that, actually, today almost a quarter of our portfolio, actually more than a quarter of our portfolio is powered by renewable energy. We also have now almost all the new assets that we are building or have built over the last 5, 6 years, and also the existing buildings. We have put solar panels on the roofs. We have taken variety of initiatives to, I think if I'm not wrong, about 75% of our portfolio is either gold or platinum rated. And in order to get those ratings, the buildings need to have certain characteristics of green buildings. So we are doing a lot to not just build new buildings that are sustainability driven, but also redesigning and rekitting our existing portfolio.
Talking about redesigning or rekitting your existing portfolio, the pandemic has driven down the demand for commercial real estate. You have large investments in IT parks, and further investments have been announced. How are you looking at juggling this business or balancing this business?
So, I mean, at this point of time, definitely work from home has created a certain degree of uncertainty around physical occupancy in parks. But we are actually deriving a lot of comfort from two factors. One is that the demand for Indian IT services has been extremely strong. It's actually been growing at a very healthy pace. So that gives us a lot of comfort that, I mean, you may have seen that all the big IT services companies, TCS, Infosys, Accenture, they've all announced hiring plans which are, 30 to 40,000 going all the way to 70,000. So, and these we're talking about hiring of this year. So we do believe that, gradually that will drive the demand for more space. It is very hard to get new employees on board, many of them who are fresh IT graduates, and imbibe a culture of the company in them by doing it remotely. Already, we are seeing some of the big companies like Wipro, etc., announcing plans of bringing employees back to office. The second part of it is also that, the second part of it is the what do you call the fact that tenants throughout this COVID crisis have continued to pay rents. Our collections are almost at 99% through this COVID crisis. So clearly, in our conversations with tenants, we do see that they still see the office as relevant. Definitely, there will be a reduction in the vacancy. Will it go back to, I mean, in the occupancy, will it go back to 100%? Probably not. But we do see it as still very relevant to their own business model.
Sanjeev, in terms of warehouses, do you think everybody is looking for grade A warehouses? I mean, would there be some kind of companies, would there be companies who are also willing to settle or compromise on the quality of warehouses?
No, I actually don't think so. I mean, most of the companies you're seeing migrating towards grade A warehouses, there are certain fundamental reasons for this. Uh, I mean, legal and technical compliance is one big issue. Health and safety is a big issue. Even warehouses, the new grade A warehouses are sustainable warehouses. So all of these factors are making it very difficult to for occupiers to just focus on cheap rental warehouses and not focus on quality.
Right. My last question, Sanjeev. With more FIIs looking at investing in India, what are some of the steps that the government and authorities take to make this last?
So by and large, I would actually give a lot of credit to the government. In the last 7, 8 years, they've announced a whole variety of measures which have made it much easier for foreign investors to invest. That is why, if you look at it, the amount of inflow into real estate has gone up dramatically. I think the REIT legislation and cleaning it up to make it more investor friendly was a huge step. I do think that by and large, the direction of regulation has been very, very positive. I am looking forward to hearing about the single window clearance that Piyush Goyal had announced recently as to what that would imply. I am hoping that it'll make things even faster from a real estate development standpoint. I mean, if that happens, it'll be great for India.
So thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you. Is there any other points that you would like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think that real estate is in most countries a very key pillar of development. I mean, if you look at a country like China as an example, almost 20 to 25% of China's GDP is linked to real estate. Even for India, it's actually a pretty high number, and I think it is often not adequately appreciated in terms of its employment generation capability, especially for people in the semi-skilled, unskilled categories. So we really need to have, a pro-development mindset for this sector because it genuinely has tremendous employment generation potential.
But then, will the vast infrastructure projects that India has ongoing, wouldn't that count for real estate also?
It would, but typically, if you look at development in most nations, when infrastructure projects take off and when they get implemented, around the entire infrastructure corridor, real estate projects start coming up. So so there is always this strong connectivity and spillover between real estate and infrastructure.
So thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your help.